board-certified behavior analyst. I also have my master's degree in general education and special education. I've been in the field for about 10 years, and I had the privilege of being trained by the Carbone Clinic. Tonight's presentation is going to be on verbal behavior. Specifically, I'm going to talk about the teaching procedures because I've worked with a lot of you guys here in the audience, and a lot of the times we kind of come into the field and, we have some experience, but we're not necessarily always trained on the teaching procedures. So what happens when we're teaching a mand? What happens when we're teaching a tact? Sometimes we don't even know what those words mean. So we're going to kind of just focus on that stuff tonight. So before we get to verbal behavior, I just want to talk about behavior in general. So what is behavior? Behavior is everything that we do. I'm breathing, I'm talking right now. That's behavior. I'm thinking, that's behavior. Okay, so when you have behavior, behavior can be analyzed, right? And that's kind of where we're going to go tonight. We're going to kind of look at behavior in terms of the verbal behavior, so speaking or signing. So I just want to differentiate a little bit between what applied behavior analysis is and what verbal behavior is, because sometimes there's a little bit of confusion between what is verbal behavior, what is applied behavior analysis. Some people say, I do ABA, some people say, I do VB. So just to clarify a little bit, applied behavior analysis is the only scientifically validated treatment recommended by the US Surgeon General for autism spectrum disorder. And it's the application of basic behavioral principles to improve socially significant behavior. So basically quality of life. So I've had some clients where I've walked into the home and they've had beautiful programs, right? They're sitting there, they're working on verbal behavior, they're doing discrete trial instruction, and it looks beautiful, right? But then I talk to mom, and mom says, we can't walk on the streets because my son needs to touch the fire hydrants, the cars, the mailboxes. Do you guys have kids like that? Yeah, right? So when we think of applied behavior analysis, what we want to do is improve quality of life, right? So we're looking at that family, and sure, the discrete trial looks perfect when we're at a table, right? But they are very, they're contrived situations. They're very rigid. It's very strict guidelines. It's not programming for what happens when I'm walking on the street and, somebody's walking by and my son's going to grab the bag, right? So what we think about is we want to talk about socially significant behavior. So socially significant here for the family is I want to be able to walk on the street. I want to be able to put my child on a school bus so that I don't have to leave work early because I can't put him on a bus, because I have to get him directly into my car from the school and then get him in my car, drive home, then directly into the house, and then I'm stuck at home. I can't go out unless I have childcare, right? That seems like it's pretty socially significant, right? Right. So we want to just kind of take that into account when we're working with our children. So we have our kids where we have discrete trial instruction, and we're, most of it is focused on verbal behavior because we want them to be able to communicate, because that's going to improve their quality of life. But it can't just be exclusive that we're just working on those skills. We want to look at the bigger picture. So outside of an example like that, and then we have communication, what are some other things that we might want to work on with our kids? Brushing my hair. Yeah, adaptive living skills, exactly, definitely. So brushing their teeth, getting dressed. I'm sorry? Going to sleep, washing their hands, exactly, perfect. And the way that we teach those skills are the same way that we're going to teach verbal behavior. How many are familiar with the three-term contingency? You are? Can I just get a show of hands? Awesome, so a good number, perfect, okay. So we have the three-term contingency. So basically all behavior can be broken down and analyzed. We have an antecedent, so something that happens directly before behavior. The behavior itself, which is, like I said, everything that we do, and then a consequence. And I just want to say something about consequence, right? A consequence isn't necessarily something that's bad. I know that we hear, as we kind of grow, we hear the word consequence, and automatically we kind of think it's something negative, right? But in terms of applied behavior analysis, a consequence is just a stimulus, so something that's in the environment that happens directly after a behavior. It's not something that we deem as like good or something that's bad, right? So when we talk about consequences, I'm going to focus on the first two types, right? So we have reinforcement, and then we have something called punishment. So reinforcement is something that happens directly after a behavior that will strengthen, increase, or maintain the future rate of that behavior. It's really important to remember future rate of that behavior, okay? Also, just a quick point, when we're talking about reinforcement, we want reinforcement to happen the second after a behavior occurs. Because let's just say I look at a bus and I say, bus, right? And the therapist isn't paying attention. And then I start slumping out of my seat, and then they say, oh, good job saying bus. I'm already slumping out of my seat and shouldn't be getting praise at that time, right? Right? Okay. So that's reinforcement. We're going to talk about that in depth in a little bit. Punishment is something that happens directly after a behavior that will decrease the future rate of that behavior. So, and then extinction, we're not going to talk about that tonight. That's going to be kind of saved for another workshop. We're going to do a workshop on problem behavior next school year, so sometime in the fall or winter or something like that. But I just want to say something about reinforcement, right? Because we're talking about the future rate of that behavior. And let's just say a kid raises their hand. So now let's kind of just imagine that we're in a classroom, right? And we have a student, and we say, we ask a question, like, what's 2 + 2? And they raise their hand, and they say 4. And we say, Johnny, awesome job. You did a great job, okay? A lot of us here would think that we just reinforced him, right? We don't know if we reinforced him, because the next time we ask that question, like let's just say we ask another question, what's 2 + 1? Johnny might not raise his hand because he doesn't like the verbal praise in front of his peers. He might get embarrassed, he might blush, and he doesn't like that, right? Kind of like you think about it a little bit differently. So another thing that we want to kind of consider when we're talking about reinforcement is what we might think is reinforcing to us might not really be reinforcing to our client, okay? So we're going to talk about identifying reinforcers and what is reinforcing to the client in a little bit when we talk about pairing. So these are just some examples to go back to the 3-term contingency in a way that we haven't seen it. So a lot of the times we're exposed to the 3-term contingency when we're talking about problem behavior, right? We want to know what happens before, we want to know the behavior, and we want to know what did you do after it, right? Is that how many of you guys learned about it? Yeah, okay. So, like I said, verbal behavior can be analyzed as well because it's a behavior, because everything we do is behavior. So, what does A stand for? Antecedent, good. B? And C? Perfect, okay. So, right here, the antecedent is a verbal stimulus, and it's touch nose, okay? So the verbal stimulus to the child is touch nose. The child then touches his nose. The consequence is he receives a cookie, right? So, 1, did the cookie serve as a reinforcer? Do we know that? We don't know that yet, right, good. And the only way that we're going to find that out is the next time when we're teaching this skill, when we say touch nose, if he touches his nose, then we know that that cookie served as an effective reinforcer, right? Okay, so here, we're going to talk about a different example. So here, the verbal stimulus to the child is do the puzzle. The child's behavior then, he falls to the floor. The consequence here is, oh, you don't like that one, you want a different puzzle? What did we just teach the child there?
Reinforcing escape.
Yes, I love it. That was awesome. Can you say that louder?
You're reinforcing escape.
Exactly. We just taught him that if he falls to the floor, we're going to now change the demand. No. Reinforcement, sorry. Yes. Sorry, I went somewhere else. Right, exactly. We negatively reinforced his behavior because we withdrew the demand and we increased, right, when we get to the reinforcement, we increase the future rate of him falling to the floor. Awesome, that was great. Okay, so now where does verbal behavior differ from applied behavior analysis? We're kind of already getting into it. We're talking about basically everything that we do that's verbal, right? So verbal behavior is a behavioral account of language development. So we want to really think about the ABCs of behavior. So, but it's for language, kind of like we just looked at it. We talked about touching nose. We're going to talk about mands, which is requesting, and tacting, which is labeling, in a little bit. So it's a functional analysis of language. We're going to look at the behavior that we want to teach, the antecedent that's going to evoke that behavior, and the consequence that's going to maintain that behavior. And it's no different, really, than doing a functional analysis for problem behavior. And it's really important here to remember that this is behavior that's reinforced through the mediation of another person's behavior. Specifically, most of the time it's verbal behavior, but it doesn't necessarily have to be verbal. It could be just reinforcing a man by delivering the item that the person requested. So the reason now this one's a little bit different is behavior that's reinforced through the mediation of another person's behavior is because with all behavior, we know that behavior serves a function, right? So sometimes we have a lot of kids that engage in stereotypy, which is that like hand flapping or rocking behavior. Now that isn't mediated by another person. So the reinforcement is really coming from within from that person. So this one, we need another person, right? Because if you think about it, when you're talking, you're always talking to somebody else, right? And when I say talking, it doesn't necessarily have to be talking the way that I'm talking to you right now. It could be through sign. It could be through a picture exchange communication system. It could be through an iPad. It could be handwritten. It could be typed. So it's really important to remember that verbal behavior isn't necessarily always, orally spoken, okay? So I'm going to be the student right now, and Dan's going to be my instructor, right? I don't have any verbal skills. I'm nonverbal, okay? If I go like this, what do you think he's going to do? He's going to give me the bus. So it's the way that it's the function. It's the function. It's the way that it's being used. So in that case, yes, it would be, thank you, it would be verbal behavior. Now, I just want to touch on one other thing, though. When it comes to verbal behavior, it's a little bit different than the traditional accounts of language and the way that it's been used. So speech pathologists look at language differently than behavior analysts look at language. So speech therapists will kind of look at syntax and grammar, morphemes, phonemes, semantics, pragmatics. So that's what the speech therapists are mainly looking at, where we're kind of looking at verbal behavior through a function-based viewpoint, okay? So this is the traditional discrete trial instruction and the VB approach, okay? So we have when discrete trial kind of first started, back, 20, 30 years ago with Lovas. It was very rigid. It was, mass trialing. It was a lot of demands, okay? And a lot of the times kids would get frustrated. However, it did prove to be effective. So verbal behavior kind of now looks at, we really need to work on getting these kids to be able to communicate because then we're going to start to reduce some of the problem behavior that they might be emitting. So, but some of the similarities are they're both based on decades of ABA research. Verbal behavior falls under the umbrella of applied behavior analysis. It's not something different. It just it's a specific topic within applied behavior analysis. So they're both concerned with improving language and learning skills and reducing problem behavior. They both use intensive teaching sessions. I'm going to show you guys some videos later of the VB approach, and then I'm going to model what the traditional ABA discrete trial instruction looks like. And then I want you guys to kind of just draw your own conclusions, okay? But we're going to save that till the end of the presentation. So the differences here are that verbal behavior has a heavy emphasis on motivation, pairing, and manding, while discrete trial instruction does not. Verbal behavior describes expressive language in terms of specific verbal operands defined by B.F. Skinner in 1958. I want you guys to think of some of your clients, right? And if I said the word bus, do you think that they know the word bus? Or, think of some other word, like cookie or water, right? So with verbal behavior, we start to look at the functions of the word, okay? So we know we have one word. The word's going to be bus for this example, okay? So I want you guys to continue to think about your client and about that word that you guys selected. If you can use the word bus, that would be ideal for this example. So we want to know, can your client do an intraverbal of the wheels on the bus, right? Can they do that example? If they see one, can they label it and say, that's a bus? If they want to play with the toy, can they say the word bus so that they can get it? If I say the word bus, can they then write the word bus? If I say the word bus, can they then say the word bus? If I sign the word bus, can they then sign the word bus? If I say, tell me something that you ride on to school, can they say the word bus? Tell me something yellow, can they say bus? Tell me something that has wheels, can they say bus? Can your clients do every single one of that example? Some can, some can't. So that's one word, but we just kind of show that that one word can have many different meanings across many different examples. So some of it we talked about. We have the primary verbal operands. We have mands, which are requests, tacts, which are labels, intraverbals, which are fill-ins and answering questions. Additionally, there are codics and duplics, but for this presentation, I'm not going to really get into it. But codics consists of textual, so being able to read, transcription, so if I say the word bus, can they write the word bus? And then duplets are, I say the word bus, can they then verbally say the word bus? If I sign it, can they sign it? That's a mimetic. And then if I write the word bus, can they then write the word bus? We're not going to get into that for this presentation. That would be more saved more for like advanced verbal behavior. And then there's autoclitics as well. There's also a nonverbal operant, which is listener responding or receptive language, so listener behavior, basically being able to follow instructions. We can do this as a group. So I want you guys to identify the operant. A child says apple because he wants one. What is that? Is that a mand, a tact, an intraverbal, or a listener behavior? Mand, excellent. A child touches marker when the teacher says touch marker. What's that? Let's look at it again. The teacher says touch marker. The student is then going to touch the marker. Listener behavior, yes, awesome, great job. Perfect. A child says drink when he's thirsty. What's that? Mand, excellent, guys. Child says cat when he sees a cat. Tact, excellent, perfect. Child says toes after his teacher says head, shoulders, knees, and intraverbal, excellent, great job, guys. So I just want to go back to this example here where you see the word bus, right? So when it comes to children on the spectrum, the research has showed that the skills do not naturally transfer across functions as they do for typically developing children. So when a typically developing child learns the word bus, they're then able to say, you know, when I say, tell me something that has wheels, they can say bus. Tell me something yellow, they can say bus. The wheels on the bus. But for children with autism, that doesn't necessarily transfer across all the different verbal operands, all right? So that's where we really want to focus our treatments, is we're going to fill in those gaps. We're going to figure out which operands do they know and which ones don't they know, and then we're going to expand their vocabulary so that they can do a lot more with it. A lot of the times, the BCBA is going to go in and they're going to do an assessment. The VB map focuses on verbal behavior, and the treatment plans that the BCBAs are writing are based on this assessment. So a lot of the goals that you guys are getting are coming from this assessment. So I thought it would be really important for you guys to just kind of understand what's this whole thing about. So the VB map, and I can actually, you know what, I'm going to pass it around. So this is the VB map, and you can kind of just flip through it and see what some of the objectives are that the BCBAs are assessing. A lot of the things you're going to notice are goals that you guys are working on every day. So the VB map, it stands for Verbal Behavior Milestones Assessment and Placement Program, is a criterion referenced assessment designed by Dr. Mark Sumberg that utilizes B.F. Skinner's behavioral interpretation of language as its conceptual framework. So what that basically means is we're going to look at verbal behavior. In addition, there's other skills in there too, like socialization and self-help skills and the readiness skills that we need for understanding what we're reading. So reading comprehension, understanding mathematics and the concepts behind that as well. So the VB map is structured according to typical language development milestones. So what that means is he did a ton of research and looked at what are the milestones that a typically developing child would reach. And then this assessment is based in that order. So that when we do the assessments, we're then able to see, okay, he's able to mand for 10 things, because, you know, a lot of the times when kids are first manding, right, they mand for mama, they mand for baba, right? These are things that they need. But also, a lot of the times they're able to see that, right? So then, if you kind of jump along in the developmental milestones, you get to a point where you have to be able to ask for things that aren't going to be necessarily in your line of sight, right? So let's just say I needed to go to the bathroom. I can't see a bathroom in here, but I need to say, Malky, where's the bathroom, right? So then it kind of jumps up the skills, and you'll see that if you just kind of look in the assessment. So the assessment yields data that are linked to specific ages that provide an understanding of the child's development in comparison to typical age norms. So I'm going to get back to that bullet in a couple seconds because you're going to see actual grids, and I'm going to be able to explain it a little bit better. It'll be a little bit more clear. So not only is it an assessment, but it's also a curriculum as well. So it provides guidance for treatment plans, for treatment planning, and for goal selection. There are 5 components to the VB map. So we have the milestones, which we just kind of talked about. Then we have barriers. So these are these behavioral barriers that are kind of getting in the way, right? So if a kid can request 10 items and, you know, he could follow a couple directions, if we want to start teaching him more advanced verbal behavior like interverbal skills, so, you know, answering questions, we need him to be able to attend to us. If we have kids that are running around the room, not being able to sit in a chair, we've got a barrier, right? Because they're not listening to us. We need to have instructional control. And a lot of the times, this is the hardest part right there, is getting that instructional control. And I'm actually going to talk about that as well, and I have some video just to kind of help demonstrate a few things that will be helpful for you guys, that you guys are going to be able to walk away with. You know, you're going to get some tools and be able to implement tomorrow. So in addition to the milestones and barriers, there's a transition part of the assessment, which helps to determine appropriate educational placements. So in school settings, you want to look at, should they be in a more restrictive environment or a less restrictive environment? So should they be in a self-contained class versus being in a general education classroom? And then there's also a skills task analysis, which breaks down the milestones into a task analysis, and then the placement and IEP goals. What the BCBAs are primarily looking at are the milestones, the developmental milestones, and the barriers, the behavioral barriers that are kind of getting in the way. So the milestones assess language development across all the verbal operands and other various skills important to development. So we have the MANs, which are, what are MANs again? Requests, good. What about TACs? What are those? Good. Listener responding? Like following directions? Yep, receptive language, yep, exactly. What are echoics? We didn't talk about those, really. Yeah, verbally imitating what you say, good. Then we have motor imitation, visual perceptual skills, matching to sample, independent play, social behavior and social play, spontaneous vocal behavior, listener responding by feature, function, and class, intraverbals, classroom routines and group skills, linguistic structure, reading, writing, and math. Before we kind of talked about how the assessment is going to link the data to ages, right? So scores are going to fall within 3 levels. Level 1 is the developmental age of 0 to 18 months of age. Level 2 is 18 to 30 months of age, and level 3 is 30 to 48 months of age. And we're talking about developmental age. So we might have a 10-year-old who is scoring in a level 2 area. So even though he's chronologically 10 years old, he might be only developmentally functioning around a 2-year-old. And that's really important when we think of our clients, because sometimes we're like, well, he's 10 years old, he should be able to read, right? But when we think about developmentally, should a 2-year-old be able to read yet? No, right. Oh, so just one more note. So typically, you don't want to teach reading skills or those readiness skills until they're in a level 3 age, a level 3 group, which is 30 to 48 months of age. So like pre-K, right? So they start to learn their letters, they start to learn some sounds, stuff like that. So your client or your child is typically assessed 1 to 2 times per year, and a board-certified analyst or licensed behavior analyst will do the assessment. It's important to follow a developmental assessment and curriculum because it follows the sequence that a typically developing child would follow when acquiring language and other related skills. So it shows the logical sequence for skills to grow and develop. So it kind of provides a prerequisite skills for academic learning. And that's what we really need to think of when we're working with our kids. We need to give them the prerequisites that they need for academic learning if they're going to go that route. If they're not going to go that route, let's just say they don't make a lot of progress on using a verbal behavior curriculum, then we might want to say, you know what, we need to shift to an adaptive curriculum and teach them mainly life skills. And this will help determine which path they're going to kind of go. So I don't know, I know some of my therapists have seen the BB maps, right? So you guys have seen the grids and you see where they fall, all right? So this kid, we can see right here, is falling within a level 1, right? So level 1, again, is 0 to 18 months of age. It says that Sam is 9 years old-ish. Nope, he's 11 now. This is an old grid. So he's 11 now, right? So what this tells me is that he's got some skills here. You guys can't see what this is, but this says MANs and this says TACs. So as a behavior analyst, what are some of the first things I'm going to target? MANs and TACs, exactly. So we also see one other thing that we're going to consider are echoics. He does have some echoics, which means that he can imitate verbally what I say. So when I'm selecting a communication system for that child, I wouldn't necessarily jump to a picture exchange or sign language because he has the verbal abilities. And when they have the verbal abilities, you want to go with the verbal abilities because it's easiest to understand. So that's one one grid, that's one kid. We have another kid here who is now, let's just say he's 2 years old for all intents and purposes. So he's chronologically 2, and developmentally he's falling between 18 to 30 months of age. So do you think that this kid really needs intervention at this point? No, right, exactly, because he's right where he needs to be. Exactly, perfect. This guy is 12 years old. So the 2 colors, what this means is the first time he was assessed in yellow. Then to determine his growth, he went to green. You know, the assessor switched colors so that we were able to see the difference between the 2 times they were assessed. So we see here, there's some deficits, right? We've got some deficits over here. They're not these areas are not growing with the other areas, right? But we're going to kind of continue with this program because we see that he's made progress. We see all that green. But, like I said, we've got some problems over here. And that's play and social skills. So that's going to tell me, hey, we need to focus on his play and social skills. So you can see the value in this assessment, right? Yeah. So after we look at the VB map, we want to look at where the child's scores fall, just like we just did. And we see that not all scores are going to follow, or they're not going to fall within the same level. And we want to just choose the instructional objectives that really need the most help. So we kind of talked about this just now a little bit, but communication. Why is it important for a child to have a communication system? Express how he feels. I heard somebody else. They get frustrated if they can't communicate, right? Just like we all would get frustrated. Exactly, exactly. So when we're choosing a response form, and a response form really just means in this sense, what system are they going to use? We have vocal language, sign language, and selection-based systems. We want to use what is easiest for the learner. So when choosing a response form, choose something that will be reinforced in the natural environment. So we talked earlier about how verbal behavior is mediated by another person, right? So that's exactly what this is talking about. We want to use a system that somebody else is going to be reinforced, that somebody else is going to reinforce. So if we're using sign language, that's great if we're in the session and we're fluent in sign language and we're teaching our client sign language. If the parents don't know sign language, or if you're a parent and you're teaching your child sign language, but his teachers don't know sign language, are those signs going to be reinforced? No. So that kid isn't going to learn anything. So when we choose what system they're going to use, we want to really get everybody on board so that everybody's on the same track. So children whose scores fall typically within level 1, we want to focus on MANS, echoics, motor imitation, listener discriminations, which is listener responding, tact, visual, perceptual, and matching skills. And really, I can't stress this enough. If the child has no MANS, that's what we want to teach first. Because MANS are requests. It's the first thing that babies learn, how to get their needs met. And when you look at all the different verbal operants, the MAND is the only one that really truly benefits the speaker. Because if they ask for something, then they're going to get it, their needs met. Everything else benefits really the other person. Okay? And we're going to talk very shortly about how to teach a MAND. And you'll see videos and everything like that too. So other focus areas for level 1 learners are play and socialization, spontaneous vocalizations, fine and gross motor skills, and self-help skills as well. Most skills are going to be taught using discrete trial instruction and natural environment training. So this is level 2. So we know that at this point, we know that the kid can command. We know that he has some tacts. He can follow instructions, right? So when they get to level 2, we want to work on expanding the size and scope of their mands, tacts, and listener repertoires. We want to develop multi-component verbal and nonverbal responses, so really work on forming sentences. So if the child is not in a level 2, don't focus on sentences yet. It might be too effortful, and then you might see problem behavior. Not to mention, it probably doesn't have any meaning to them yet. Especially like if we say, if a kid wants Play-Doh, right? I'm going to teach him to just say Play-Doh. I'm not going to teach him to say please at this point, because please has no meaning to him or to her. We want to just teach him the word. We want to get him started. We want to get them. We want to get a list of things that they can then request for, because then guess what? Their world gets better, right? Think about it. If you weren't able to communicate for a day, if you weren't able to request anything, what kind of life are you living? Can't be that great, right? Oh, you know what? One other thing I want to talk about real quick about when you're selecting a communication system. I see a lot of kids these days getting iPads, right? One thing we need to think about with the iPads is, what happens if that iPad's not charged? Our child, or if it's in another room, our child or our client just lost their voice. So I just want to stress to you guys, whatever system that they're using, make sure it's with them all the time and it's charged, okay? Because I've worked in schools. I was a teacher for a few years for District 75, and you know, it didn't make sense, but some of the kids would get iPads, right? But they weren't allowed to go home with them. So then the kid lost his voice, right? It's sad. So just keep that in mind. So back to level 2. So we also at this point want to start working on listener responding by feature, function, and class. So at this point, we're not just teaching him that this is a bus anymore, because level 1, you're just working on labeling it. So this is a bus, right? So level 2, we get into, tell me something that's yellow. Tell me something that has wheels. What do you do with a bus? You ride on a bus. What kind of class? So like, tell me a type of transportation. Bus. Okay, so those are some of the skills that you're going to be working on in level 2. You also want to work on the intraverbal skills. So that's the wheels on the bus go round, and they would say round, right? Or what's your name? And they say their name. How old are you? That kind of stuff. So we also want to work on developing social and verbal interactions with peers. And also just a note here, at this point in level 2, we should have some good instructional control, right? Because if we don't have instructional control and you start to put them with peers, we might have a problem, because then they're not listening to you, right? So we definitely want to make sure that they listen to you first before we start doing that stuff. If you're in a classroom, you also want to work on group and classroom skills, and hopefully teaching them the skills so that they can learn in a less restrictive environment. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of kids. Well, okay, let me change that. I've seen over the years, a lot of the times, kids flying through level 2, right? But it's not necessarily the kids that are flying through. A lot of the times, we might get frustrated as clinicians that they're not making the progress that we want, but we're seeing some of it. So then we might say, all right, he's got some of it, we're going to give him credit, right? There's a danger in that, because if they don't really have these skills, when we move up to level 3 and we start teaching those like pre-academic and readiness skills, we might have a problem. So I don't rush through this phase. It's really important to just kind of spend your time, make sure that they're really getting these skills. And we also want to work on generalizing these skills in the natural environment. So it's great that, in our very controlled setting where we're sitting at the table and they're paying attention to us, that they're able to label a bus. But the research shows that children on the spectrum have a hard time generalizing skills. So they might be able to learn it with just me, but then when Dan comes, they can't do it with Dan. He's a different person. They didn't learn how to do it with Dan. Or when they go into the community, if mom says, hey, what's that? they can't say it's a bus. So at this point too, we really want to focus on generalizing these skills so that they have meaning in multiple environments and across different instructors as well. And we want to make sure that the skills stay balanced. Like before, when we looked at those grids, we saw that some of the skills were kind of consistent, but then we saw down here there were a few that didn't. So we just want to make sure that everything stays balanced. Designing an intervention for level 3. So this is level 3 learners. So we want to work on expanding the content of what students talk about, expanding sentence size, developing more complex manding. So at that point, so what that basically means is kind of talking about private events. So private events are not like covert behaviors where, you know, you go into the bathroom. Like that's not a private event in terms of behaviorism. In terms of behaviorism, a private event is something that you can't measure or observe. So only the person who's experiencing it can. So me telling you that I'm very tired right now. You guys wouldn't be able to see that, but I'm telling you that, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted, right? So that's a private event that I'm feeling tired and I'm communicating that to you guys. And just kidding, I'm really not tired. So, teaching more complex intraverbal behavior, socially appropriate behavior, increasing the frequency and complexity of peer and social interactions, learning in group formats, because the more advanced they become, we want to make sure that they can learn in a classroom. And then also those beginning academic skills. So where do we start? We start with pairing. Pairing should start the first day we work with a learner and continue every day we're with him or her. It's an ongoing process. Pairing should be done throughout the day, and it's a really important component to establishing instructional control. Jessica just started. Hi, Jessica. Can you raise your hand? Hi. Okay. Jessica just started with one of my clients, right? Jessica, you've been working with him for 2 days now. Can you tell everybody what I told you to do for those 2 days? She's playing with him. She's getting to know him. She's essentially becoming a reinforcer to him so that when she comes, he associates her with play. Not, oh God, she's here, I'm hitting the dots, I'm out of here. We don't want him to run away. We want him to run to her, right? So now she's playing with him. They're having a great time. She's not seeing a lot of problem behavior. It's perfect. And I'm going to show you guys a video very shortly. So if problem behavior occurs during the pairing process, we do want to address the problem behavior. We don't want to just kind of let it slide because then they're going to take advantage of that. So we do want to address it. Let's just say that we're really working on getting a child to sit in front of us, right? So we're going to play, we know that the child's favorite video is SpongeBob. So we're going to play SpongeBob, right? We're going to hold it on an iPad, play some SpongeBob. Let's just say the kid gets up and runs away, right? So there's an example of problem behavior. So what, better yet, what would you do? I need a brave soul. The iPad's playing SpongeBob, the kid just gets up and runs away. Anybody want to volunteer and say what they would do? No? Yes. Right. What would you do about SpongeBob? I'm sorry? Pause it. Yes. Perfect. Awesome. Yes. We're not going to let that video keep playing so that he's then able to run away and still watch the video. No, that's done. Fun steps. So I'm going to turn the video off. I'm going to then get up and say, go back and sit down. And I'm just going to wait him out. I'm not going to put my hands on him. I'm not going to push him back because I don't want to be aversive to him right now. We want him to like me. But I'm going to be firm and just say, go sit down. And you guys, some of you guys have seen it. It works. It definitely works. Okay? So this is an example here of the pairing procedure. It's a parent and therapist. And they just started working with this child. So I want you guys to pay attention to what they're doing. And then I want you to just kind of tell me, what are some of their behaviors? What are they doing that makes this a good example of pairing?
Ready? You can take that. 1, 2, 3, go!
What's the boy doing? He's smiling, right? All right. I'm going to play it again because there's a few really great things that happen there.
Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3,
All right. What did you guys see?
I saw the adults making physical contact from the start. They move the child's hands and they feel comfortable. They also tickle them and also help them assist them up. And also they figure something out.
Awesome. Nice job. That was great. Yes. They were doing fun things. He liked it. He was smiling, right? They, like you just said, he wanted to get up. They helped him up. So that means they were paying attention to him. Just because they were doing the activity, they saw that he was done. They followed his motivation. He was done. There's another point here, and I'm going to just kind of talk through this time.
Ready? You can take it. 1, 2, 3, go!
So he's smiling, right? He's having a good time. Oh, we see right there he tried to get up, right? What did they do? Now they changed the activity a little bit, right? And they change it. Now I want him, because they saw that he tried to get up. And now he's done. So they stop it, right? Now, before we start working on some of the goals, we want to make sure that our child has these essential skills. We want to make sure that when I say come here, they're going to come to me because they like me, right? We're going to tell them to sit down. We want to make sure that they can sit down. We want to make sure that they can fold their hands. And for some kids, they have a hard time doing that. So I just tell them hands down, works the same. Walk with me. I want them to be able to walk with me. I don't want them running away from me because that could be a real problem, especially if you're out in the community. Stop and wait. And these are more like safety skills, right? If a kid is running towards the street, we want to be able to scream stop and they listen to us. Okay, so we just take this into account as well. And also wait. We want them to be able to wait for reinforcement. All right. Okay, so now I want to work on these skills that you guys are doing every day. Okay? So we're working on teaching the MAND. So a MAND, again, is requesting. It's asking for something that you want. It's going to directly benefit you, the speaker. So the antecedent here is motivation. Okay? So that's a private event, right? So something that they can't see, although I'm going to show you ways that you can kind of spot it. But it's something that the speaker is going to experience. So I'm really thirsty right now, okay? The behavior is then going to be my request for a drink, and the consequence is going to be the specific reinforcer. It's not going to be verbal praise, because I'm not asking for verbal praise. I'm asking for a drink, okay? So here in this example, you can see it's written down. You have the antecedent over here is hunger, behavior is cookie, and consequence gets the cookie, okay? So this is so teaching the MAND. Prior to teaching MANDs, you want to think about the following. What motivates the learner? When is that motivation the strongest? So we talked a little bit before about what motivates the learner. How are we going to figure that out? We want to expose them to a lot of different things. So new toys, right? New games, even new videos, perhaps. When is motivation strong? If we're working on teaching food, we're not going to teach it after dinner when they're full. right? They're not going to want food at that point. They're stuffed. But we might want to teach a man for different types of food when they're hungry, like after school. And you just want to make a list of possible reinforcers. And then you're going to select the first few words that you're going to teach. So when choosing the first words to teach, keep the following in mind. You want to make sure that the learner has a high motivation for it. The learner will not become satiated with it quickly so that it allows for multiple trials. So if you're just teaching cookie, for example, we're not going to give them full cookies. They're going to get full. So in order to get multiple trials, we're going to break that cookie up, right? So we want to make sure that we can deliver it quickly and easily. And if it can be consumed or dissipate. Also, they're easy to remove when necessary, and you don't want to rhyme them, okay? Because it can be confusing for the child when they're learning with the echoic, and that's the way that you're going to teach them. And we also want it to be something that you use in a natural environment. We don't want to teach them something that they're never going to really need. Words that should be avoided, okay? I know some of these you guys have all heard and probably done. I am very guilty in my early days. I was taught to teach my kids the word more, right? How many of you guys have used more? Yeah, a good chunk, right? Anybody know why we don't want to teach more as one of the first mans? Too general. Exactly. Right. If I just go up to Dan over here and I say, can I have more? More what? I don't know. He doesn't know. So then we're back to square one. So words that should be avoided are more, please, mine, yes, and help. They're too general. We don't know what they're talking about. Words that are related to motivators from general categories. We don't want to teach them the word eat. Again, eat what? Do they want a cookie or do they want a sandwich? We don't know. We want to teach them the specific word, the specific item. Words to remove an aversive, break, finished, all done, or no. We don't want to teach that because then we're teaching them words to get them away from us. We don't want that. We want them to like us. And also words that are related to items that are hard to deliver, like swimming, riding a bike, outside, gum, please and thank you. It doesn't have meaning yet. So these are just some examples of words to teach. Chip, apple, cookie, cracker, banana. They're specific. Specific drinks, juice, milk. Specific toys, ball, car, bubbles, train, Play-Doh. Or physical actions, up, push, spin, tickles, hug, swing, push. So teaching the man. You want to begin in the natural environment where motivation is strong. This can take place at the table as well. Have a variety of highly preferred items available, so edibles, toys, games, sensory items, etc. Keep in mind that first list that you developed while you were pairing with the child. During that pairing procedure, you're writing all those things that are reinforcing. Those are the items that you want to teach. Also, we want to restrict access to those items during the day so that they are more motivated to then demand and request when we're working with them. If they're able to get it all day long for free, why are they then going to do it when they're making them work for it? Now we're going to get to teaching the man. We want to watch the child and see what he or she is interested in. Keep in mind that motivation is always changing. I might want Play-Doh one time, or let's just say I want Play-Doh 3 times, but then I look and I'm gesturing towards the soda the next time. My motivation changed. I don't want the Play-Doh anymore, I want the soda, right? And that happens to us every day. So ways that we're able to then identify what their motivations are looking at an item or reaching for an item. We want to prompt the man to reduce the effort required for the reinforcement. Do not say, what do you want? I know that's kind of counterintuitive for us, because we want them to, like if we say, what do you want? We want them to be able to answer it, right? The problem here is that we're teaching kids who really aren't able to request anything yet. If we say, what do you want every time, the problem there is that they may then become reliant on what do you want as a type of prompt. And then what happens is they only ask for things when somebody asks you, what do you want? Now you guys know, just from living life, that you guys want things all the time and you're able to ask for it. But imagine if you weren't able to ask for those things unless somebody said, what do you want? Okay, so we just kind of want to remember that. We'll introduce what do you want, like around level 2, not so much level 1, all right? So we want to make sure that we don't fade our prompts too quickly. We want to make sure that we fade our prompts quickly because we don't want them to then become reliant on prompts. We've seen a lot of kids, right, I'm sure in our experience, where they've been prompt dependent. We want to work on fading prompts. And the way that we're going to do that is kind of built into the teaching procedure itself. And also, we want to avoid reducing the learner's motivation for items and activities by interspersing freebies. If they have to ask for it every single time, they may eventually just be like, oh, I'm done, I'm exhausted, because it's hard for them to talk. Remember that at first. So what you want to do is just give them a freebie here and there. All right, so it's not so bad. Yeah. Okay, so this is what it's going to look for. So we're going to wait for the learner to show interest or need for something. So Dan's going to watch me. I'm going to kind of look at the soda and reach for the soda, okay? Dan's going to notice that and say like, he thinks that he knows I want something now, right? So he's going to withhold that object and prompt by saying the word. We're going to do vocal right now. We'll do it with sign in a minute. So then he would vocally say the word.
Soda.
Soda, right? I would then say soda, and what would I get? I'd get the soda. I didn't get good job. I got the soda. Okay? Right, so we just did that whole thing. Now, the way that it would go, you know, for drink? It's just like, okay. So Dan's going to be the student here. Okay, so he did the sign for drink. So the teaching procedure, hold on. So I'm going to be hold on. Just reach for it. Okay, so he's going to look. I notice that he wants the soda. I'm going to withhold it, prompt drink. He's going to then do drink, and then I'm going to deliver the drink. Okay? This is the exact teaching procedure. So the learner, we're going to just call it Coke. So here, back your learner. He's going to reach for the Coke. I'm going to withhold it, say the word Coke.
Coke.
He's going to imitate what I say, and I'm going to deliver the Coke, right? Pretty simple? Okay. I want you guys to turn to a partner and practice with the ball. I don't think I crap.
You called me up before.
I did. All right, guys. What was it like for some of you guys just now? Easy, annoying, frustrating. I'm going to talk in a minute. Anybody? Easy. Okay, easy. Yeah.
Change in teaching skills.
Yes, exactly. What I'm teaching you is that this is a new way, right? So research is always changing. It's showing us, what is most effective over time. What we might think is effective, 20, 30 years ago might not be so effective now, right? So what I'm teaching you is the latest research, and I'm changing things up from some of you guys have learned different teaching procedures in the past. I'm here to shake things up a little bit and teach you guys some new stuff, right? So you can just kind of keep this in the back in your bag of tools, right? So what's easy about this is that all I'm literally looking for is them to look at it. I'm going to say the word Coke. They're going to get the Coke. That's it. Very simple. It requires less hands-on at this point, and the kids become less frustrated. Now, earlier, we saw the video of the pairing procedure, right? And in that video, they were labeling a lot of what they were doing. This is an example of a man session where the therapist who was pairing with that child earlier is now doing this in the natural environment. So we heard her saying like shake, up, down, tickles, and now this is how it's going to transfer over into the natural environment. She said down. Up. So you can see he's learned a lot too at this point. She pauses. She's waiting for him to say shake or bounce at this point. She said down.
Down. Down. There we go. Nice looking. That was awesome. What? Tickle?
Okay, so you see, it's what the girl who was first in that first video is now having him request those items, right? Now, she's also using a transfer procedure here for, a fading procedure at this point for teaching the MAND. So I talked before about you want to make sure that you fade your prompts because we don't want our clients to be reliant on prompts, right? Okay, so we just kind of did the sign real quick, but I'm going to show you the proper procedure if you're using sign language, which will help to increase vocal production, okay? So we choose soda. Soda.
Soda.
Well, you can't talk.
Oh,
So just soda, right? I'm going to deliver soda while signing it, and then he's going to drink it, and I'm going to say soda. So you see I'm signing it, and I'm verbally speaking it. And a lot of the times you do get some vocal production doing that. There's a lot of research behind that as well, yeah. Gonna reach for the soda. I'm not gonna say anything, right? I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3. I'm fading my prompt, which was the echoic of the soda, right? Let's just say he doesn't say it, okay? So at this point, I'm gonna say soda. Still not saying it, right? I'm gonna do it up to 3 times. Soda. Don't do it. Soda. Not doing it, I'm going to give it to him anyway so it doesn't become so frustrating. Okay? So now we have teaching the tact. So tacts are labels. So you're going to name an object, event, action, property, or anything that you see in the environment. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that you can see. It can also be an auditory stimulus. So something that you hear. You hear a siren. And you say, oh, that's the ambulance. So the antecedent here is a nonverbal stimulus. Nonverbal stimulus, soda. The behavior is then the tact, the label. The consequence is now generalized reinforcement, which turns into verbal praise. So I'm going to hold up the soda, and I'm going to say, what is it? Soda. Okay? What is it? Soda. Good. What is it?
Soda.
Good. That's the transfer procedure. So it's not a full prompt this time. Now it's the transfer, and it's a time transfer. So it's just a time delay. Then we're going to kind of run through 2 known skills. So touch your nose, clap your hands. What is it?
Soda.
We want to make sure that he's able to retain that skill over a couple trials. Okay? And this right here is called errorless teaching. I'm sure, have you guys been exposed to errorless? Or heard that term before? This is what it looks like, okay? So I'll run through that again because I'm going to have you guys pair up again and practice with the balls, okay? What is it? Soda.
Soda.
Good. What is it?
Soda.
Do this. Stomp your feet. What is it?
Soda.
Good. Great job. Here's your cookie. You guys got it? All right. I want to see you guys run through it. Alrighty, guys. How was teaching the tact? Good? We feel good? Cool. And like I said, this may be different than the way that you were originally taught. And that's okay. There's many different ways to teach a skill. This is just one way. I really want to emphasize that. All right, so teaching listener behavior. So this is following an instruction. So this is going to be a verbal stimulus. The behavior is going to be the motor response, or them following the instruction. And the consequence is going to be generalized reinforcement. So great job, okay? All right, so what does this look like? So here we're going to do it again errorlessly. What that means is that they're not going to make a mistake because I'm going to prompt the response. If they do make a mistake somewhere in the procedure, I'm going to just correct it and go right to the beginning of the chain and start errorlessly again. Okay, so ready? Touch bus. Good. Touch bus. I'm going to fade an aspect of my prompt, so I'm pulling my gesture back instead of from here. I'm pulling it back. Awesome. Do this one. What's your name?
Dan.
Good. Show me the bus. Awesome. Okay? So now, ready? I'm going to start this again. He's going to make a mistake. This is what's going to happen, okay? Show me the bus. Show me the bus. Okay? So here he wasn't even able to follow the gestural prompt, so at that point I'm going to do a physical prompt, okay? Again. Show me the bus. Good. Perfect. Show me the bus. Good. Do this one. Clap your hands. Show me the bus. Good. Perfect. Okay? And you're going to see an actual demonstration. I know we have 10 minutes left. I'm going to just kind of fly through this real quick. And then you're going to see what that really looks like in a real teaching session. Dan, come here. So we have motor imitation. So the verbal stimulus is do this. Well, I'm going to do this one. Okay? The behavior is the student then claps the hands, because that's what I just said. And then the consequence is great job. Okay? So that generalized reinforcement again. So the way that you're going to teach this is you're going to use full physical prompt, fade an aspect, and go to a partial physical prompt. Okay? So ready? Do this. Good. Ready? Do this. Fading it. He's got that. Do this one. Touch your nose. Do this. Yay! Great job. Okay? Good? All right, so last here we have the intraverbal. So this one, we have a verbal stimulus, okay? Behavior is going to say, the behavior is going to be a verbal behavior. It's going to speak. And then the consequence is going to be generalized reinforcement again. So ready? Here, I'm going to use a TAC. This is called a TAC to intraverbal transfer procedure. So I'm going to say, the wheels on the
Bus.
Good. See, this is my prompt, okay? Then I'm going to say, the wheels on the
Bus.
Good. What's your name?
Dan.
Touch your head. The wheels on the
Bus.
Good. Okay? Now, if he was to make an error at some point, make an error on the second trial. Okay. The wheels on the
Bus.
Good. The wheels on the See, he didn't respond right away, right? I thought he was going to make an error, so I jumped the gun and held out the picture so that he couldn't make a mistake, right? So that it's errorless.
Bus.
Good. Do this one. Do this. The wheels on the
Bus.
Good. We did the 2 distractor trials. He was able to then retain it and then get it on the last trial for the check. Okay? All right. Good intensive teaching looks like this. And then this is going to be interesting for a lot of you guys, I think, because it's probably going to be different than what most of you are used to seeing.
Nathan, do this one. Good. Can you do this? Yeah, what is it? Oh, good. What is it? Rhino. What is it? Good. Is it clap? What is it? Good. What is it? What's your teeth? Yeah, what is it? Candy. What is it? Good. Vincent, what's that one? What's this? What is it? Good. What is it? Nice. Do this.
What did you guys think of that? Awesome. That was awesome. I love that. Yes. Awesome. Really great.
She has a lot of years of experience.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, everything, that's Emily. Everything that Emily did started with everything that we talked about tonight. Started with pairing. Started fading in those demands. Started teaching him to demand for things. That's what it looks like. So, okay. There's, in this one, unfortunately you can't see the little girl in this one, but you're going to be able to hear a live error correction. All right, I don't know, whatever. Can you guys see? You guys can see, right? It's fine? It's okay. So I want you guys to pay attention to where there's an error and how we're going to fix that, okay?
Yeah. Hold on. On your mark, get back. What's that? What's that?
Pay attention to the next one.
What's that?
A ba.
What is it? Tap table. Tap down. What's that? Get down.
Did you hear the error correction there? Right? We held up the sheep. Said, what is it? She said a ba. Put it down. What is it? Sheep. What is it? She said sheep. Did a couple trials. Went back to it. What is it? And she got it. Okay? And that's what that looks like. Optimal learning takes place when the teaching environment is paired with reinforcement. So the teaching environment is a good place. Okay? We want them to like the person. We want them to like the area. We want to mix and vary instructional demands. So if you saw in both videos, you see that it's not just do this, do this, do this. It's some are do this, some are clap your hands, some are what's your name. So they're varied across different verbal operands. You want to reduce learner errors by giving them the prompts. We want to make it errorless, right? So when we're teaching new skills, we're using that errorless procedure to help reduce the errors. It also reduces frustration for the learner. So we want to intersperse easy and difficult demands, and the good ratio is do like 4-to-1 ratio. So do 4 maintenance skills to 1 target. And what's great about this is that, you know, sometimes programs go into maintenance, and then it's like you don't really use them anymore, right? With this program, you're using maintenance all the time, and it helps keep the momentum up. It keeps the learner more interested, okay? So you saw the kids aren't running away. They're paying attention. They like it. I have kids that request it every day. They love it because it's fun. You want to fade in the number of demands. So when you're first starting with the kids, you're going to just start by pairing. You're not going to sit down and try and do that the first day. You want to immediately deliver reinforcement. You guys don't know the system. That's an index card system. It was created by the Carbone Clinic, and unfortunately, the reference page didn't get attached. I'll email you all the references. This is actually coming from an article that Dr. Vincent Carbone wrote, and it's based on the conditioned motivating operation of the reflexive type, which basically means that this whole article is written to figure out how can we reduce learner frustration and get more compliance, learner compliance, okay? So you want to pace instruction properly. A fast pace of instruction keeps the kids engaged more. They're less likely to want to escape. We want to teach it to fluency so that they're able to do it quickly. And then short intertrial trials, which is basically the same thing. Also, last page here, we want to just make sure that we're always programming for generalization by using multiple stimuli. We don't want to always use this picture or this object to teach Play-Doh. We want to make sure that they know. We want to use different pictures, different items. So big ones, small ones, red ones, green ones. You want to train in multiple environments. So what you may learn at the table, you then want to make sure you can do in the natural environment. You want to train with multiple instructors, which is why it's important for the you guys, the therapists, to be able to do it, but also we want our parents to be able to do it as well, because we want these skills to generalize. We especially want our parents to be able to do it because they're with their child all the time. We want to use different carrier phrases, tones of voice, pitch, volume, etc. Okay, so we don't always want to just say, touch Play-Doh, touch Play-Doh. We want to say, touch the Play-Doh, touch that one. Where's the yellow Play-Doh? We want to just change it up so that they're able to pay attention to all the different types of ways that we might express it, because in the natural environment, we're not going to interact with people that speak the same way all the time and say the same things every time. I mean, maybe we might, but generally we don't. And also one thing that's really important to know is just that a skill is not mastered unless it's demonstrated in the natural environment, okay? And that's it. Do you guys have any questions? Thank you. Thank you.